So today we're going to talk about flipping the page, because sometimes we get to a place in our lives where we need to make a conscious decision that I will flip a page. I will not remain where I used to be. I will not remain where I am. I want to go forward. Where is my clicker now? Thanks. Okay, I believe that. Good. A very well-known portion. Psalm 23, you want to read the funerals. And it's yet speaking about those who are alive. Have you noticed that? And this portion we normally read at weddings. Love never ends. As for the prophecies, they will pass away. As for tongues, they will cease. As for knowledge, it will pass away. Now, Paul is writing to a church where the gifts of the Spirit is flowing very strongly. So much so that there was no order and no point where they started to preach or speak into one another's lives, where there was no time of edification, just holy chaos, which we need in church as well. But that was all that was happening. So Paul brought them to a place of order. And then he says, now, remember 1 Corinthians 12, he explains the gifts of the Holy Spirit. And then 1 Corinthians 14, he explains how the gifts should flow. And then smack bang in between, he throws in a chapter about love. And the reason because of that is, even though if you know the gifts and have them in your life and know how to flow with them, but you don't have love, you came to a place where you are making a noise. So there needs to be a place that love will flow through us. Why? Because that is who God is. Isn't that so? God is love. Because of love, because he was moved through love, he gave his Son to die for us because he loved us so much. So he was moved through love because he loved us and he saved us. So Paul says that I will show you a perfect way, and he speaks about love. Because sometimes we are so caught up in church systems that we forget that there needs to be love. We are so caught into the mechanical things that we forget that love needs to flow. Verse 9. For we know in part and we prophesy in part. But when the perfect comes, the partial will pass away. When I was a child, I spoke like a child. I thought like a child, I reasoned like a child. When I became a man, I gave up childish ways. For now we see in a mirror dimly, but then, one day, face to face. Now I know in part, but then I shall know fully, even as I have been fully known. Wow. So even though you know now a part, God knows you fully as you are. So the lack of fullness is not on his side. It is on our side in terms of understanding. So now, faith, hope, and love abide. These three, but the greatest of these is love. That makes sense? Yeah. Says that, you know what, when it comes to spiritual gifts, it's great. You should have it. And he names the big ones. He did not speak against prophecy when he said it will cease. He says there's a time for it, the time is now, but but there will be a time that you know it in full, that you will know the fullness, and you don't need to prophesy anymore, because you are within the fullness. It says one day tongues will cease, and when you look at what Paul says about tongues, he says that through the Spirit we speak unknown things to God and we edify ourselves. Now, if you're in the presence of God, you don't need to speak in an unknown tongue. I mean, you just are edified because you are in the fullness. So it will cease. It says, but one thing that will never cease is love. Because what we have now in terms of love will just be greater one day. Then he says that, you know what, we act sometimes like kids. And one day we will be grown-ups. And as we journey, we grow. Paul, I think, is one of the New Testament writers that write the most about young children, sons, and people that's mature in Christ. See, we all need to grow. And in terms of growing, it's about understanding as well. It's interesting what Christianity, or no, that's a wrong word, what churchianity made out of it, was that, you know what, if you want to grow spiritually, you just need to rumble off a couple of verses. And the quicker you can do it, the more you can do it, the faster you spiritually are growing. That's a sad place. Because some people are cognitively more inclined to remember words than others. And don't tell me that you can link that to spiritual growth. So when I speak about growing, about moving, about flipping a page from where you used to be to the next, it's not only about remembering verses and quoting verses, it's about the fullness of who you are moving into a greater place. I think Paul writes it beautifully. He says to move from glory to glory. Oh wow. From a place of glory to a greater glory, in the likeness of Him who we were created. Now it's interesting that as a child of God, there's always a moving. The moment we get stagnated, there's a problem. A car is designed not to stand in the garage, but to drive on the road. So if you stop, there's a couple of things that I can think of why it stopped. And I can think of a couple of problems why it stopped. It's interesting that the very first time that God was introduced in the Bible, He was moving over the waters. And we were introduced to a God that was moving, that was not stagnant, that was moving. And then the Bible comes and says that God is the same yesterday, today, and tomorrow. Yeah, in character, He is the same. Yesterday, today, and tomorrow. But in terms of how He moves, today might not be the same as yesterday. And tomorrow might not be the same as today. The same God that said to Abram, go and offer Isaac, the same God that told him that, was the very same God that said to him, stop, wow, don't do it. How many times do we sometimes go in our lives and say, get behind me, Satan, because God said. How many times have we killed Isaac? Because we could not understand that God is a God that moves. And that how He worked yesterday might not be the same today. The way He worked with you yesterday might not be the same how He works with you today. Why? Because it's a God that is moving. He created you to be dynamic and to be able to move and to grow from glory to glory in the likeness of Him. He gave you the ability to develop in the natural in your body. He gives you the ability to develop in your mind. That's what Paul said, isn't it? I don't think like a child anymore. I don't speak like a child. Why? There was development within that. And I've come to a place of more maturity. So there's a journey, and in that journey there is movement. My journey and your journey looks totally different. But there's movement. And sometimes we get caught up in our journey because we don't want to turn a page. See, if I don't turn a page, the story cannot continue. It's like reading the story of the birth of Christ. And that's all we read. It's like, man, there's more! And then it's so sad that a lot of times the church only stopped at the crucifixion, the death, and the resurrection of Christ. You know that the story continues? It continues into Acts, where He now works with His church, that is you and me. And He moves through us. And because of the cross, because of that, there is more for us. Because of the cross, the death and the resurrection, there is salvation for us. But see, the church only looked at salvation but the Bible speaks about salvation unto the kingdom as well. Have you noticed that? The gospel of the kingdom. We only spoke about the gospel of salvation. But the gospel of the kingdom says that, you know what? God is king. He is the Lord of lords. He is the shepherd. And we need to follow Him. And because of that, there can be manifestations of this. There can be healings. There can be miracles and wonders, of which sometimes we just wonder what just happened now. Because we don't have the fullness of understanding yet. But there's a moving. We need to flip that page because we sometimes get stuck in our own story. I've got friends. Jeanette and I've got mutual friends that we don't visit them as often as we used to, which is sad. And the only reason why is they are our age, 47, 50, around there. But whenever we bride, they were always students at university. And we've heard the stories over and over and over and over, to the point where you can tell it for them. And it's like, man. And I love them dearly. But there's no challenge in visiting them. There's no mutual, I don't know how to put it, because you know what they're going to talk about. And it doesn't matter how you try to change the conversation, we always go back to the old stories. And I love hearing people's stories. I love it. That's one thing. I love stories. But you hear it over and over every time you go and visit, that sometimes get too much. Because we get stuck in the page. See, sometimes the page is a good story. Yeah. I've heard good stories of people. But that's where they camp. That's where they live. Reminds me of when Jesus was transfigured on the mountain. What was the very first thing the disciples wanted to do? Oh Lord, this is such a great experience. Let's put tents here. Let's camp here. And what did he say? No, come, walk with me. We need to go down to the village. Why? Because God wants to move. He called us into a relationship that's not stagnant. He wants to move. He wants you to flip that page, even if it's a good story. Then we get people that get stuck in a page when it's a bad story. See, we find identity within our stories, in our good stories and the bad stories. I can tell you both of my life. But I made a decision that I am not defined by my past. And I'm not defined by my past failures or the success of the past. I had awesome times in the past. I had times when I cried myself to sleep, wake up crying, going to bed crying for months. But it's not who I am. But it takes a decision to flip the page. I want you to make that decision today to say that, you know what? God is a God who is a moving God. God is never the same in terms of how He works, how He moves. And that means I need to flip the page. In the Old Testament, God said to them, whenever you see this pillar of fire moves, then you move. Whenever you see the cloud move, then you move. If you don't, you miss out. You might even die in the desert. And I think it's time that we start to grab hold of that philosophy in our life anymore. See, we live a dualistic life where this is, Pastor, you're just talking now about our church life. No. Do you know where your business can go? If you say, Lord, you're my shepherd, I will follow. Bring me to the place of overflow in my business. Show me where you want me to go. I had a friend that was a farmer, and there was a stage where he came to me and he said to me that, you know what, I gave my farm to the Lord. I said to him, Lord, this is no longer mine, this is now yours. The very first thing he came to me after that was, the Lord spoke to me that I need not to farm from debt anymore, but that I need to move out of debt and start to learn how to farm in overflow. That's like, man, that's interesting. Now to them, it was, I don't know if you farmers, that's a lot of times our farmers know how to survive, how to live, they plant because of debt. And then when the crop comes in, they pay off the debt, they're out of debt again, and they live. The problem is when the crop is not that good, then you stay in debt. So that triggered me, and I spoke to a person that did the books of many farmers, and I asked him a question. I said to him, just tell me, what's the difference between a farmer farming within debt and a farmer farming without debt? And he looked at me and he said to me, light years. He didn't even think about it. He said they're light years apart. Why would a farmer that was happy to farm with debt, all of a sudden, after he gave his farm to the Lord, decided to get out of debt if it was not God's expectation? Give your life to Jesus. And I'm talking about life. Stop thinking about a dualistic thing where when we come to church and we speak about spiritual things that's just for Sunday, and when I go home, I'm in real life. And dude, then you don't know nothing. Because the same shepherd on a Sunday is supposed to be the shepherd of Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. Same person. Every day is a new beginning. We need to start changing on the inside if you really want to make a difference on the outside. And if you noticed how many times what's happening within you determines what's happening around you, just ask the mum of the house or the children how the mum's attitude influenced the atmosphere within the house. Or should I say, ask the husband? But then vice versa as well, eh? The husband as well. The children as well. Now, if different people in a small can change the atmosphere, what happens within me can change the atmosphere in our minds. Especially if it's not only me, but it is now a person next to me. And we're becoming more and more and more and more and more that get excited about our manners and not speak ill of our manners. And start speaking future and life into our minds. We can change the atmosphere. And the moment we change the atmosphere, it will have an effect within the natural. That was Pasella. You can't always get what you want. And that's the one point I want you to remember. Nathan, my oldest son, he's like 20 now. I remember when he was still sitting in my arms, going shopping. And the most dreadful place in space when you go shopping is when you walk down those aisles that they built with the chocolates on your way to the till. And they're good for a reason. Because they know your child will throw a tantrum. And they know they will feel so embarrassed that you rather buy the flippin' thing than to make a scene. So Nathan and I, he was a very strong-willed child, even today. And there was one thing that I've learned, and that was that you cannot compromise. If you say to him that, behave, otherwise I'm going to spank you, and you don't do it, next time he will push you even further. So I had this thing where I said to him, listen, I'm going to be fair towards you. You are small. I'm going to be fair towards you. I'm going to count. And when I get to 3, I will give you a hiding, doesn't matter where we are. So it happened that he pushed me and I had to give him a hiding once or twice, maybe 3 times in the shops. But then thereafter, he will sit in my arms, we will stand with the chocolates, and he will throw a tantrum, and I will look at him, and I will always say to him, look at me. And the moment his eyes lock mine, I will look at him and say, 1. And then he will still cry. 2. And then he's like, tone down. And the moment I say 3, it's as if a switch just flips. Dead one. And then he's gone. I remember the one day in the shops when I did that, the one guy tapped me on the shoulder and he said, I don't know what you did, but that worked. Now Paul says that, you know what, we are children growing up in the Spirit. I believe that God gave us sometimes, or not sometimes, He gave us things in the natural so that we can understand spiritual things. How many spiritual tantrums have you thrown? Because you did not get your will. And then time passes, you throw less spiritual tantrums, and then just one day you just go on again. Probably part of who we are as human beings, growing up into maturity. But that challenged me in the thing of this week. There's a psalm, it's a Psalm 118, saying thanks to the Lord. Some translations, others just says praise the Lord. But some of them thanks the Lord. Thank you, Lord. And thanks the Lord. And it's like, challenged me to come to a place again where I decide to thank the Lord for things in my life. You know what I realized? There's certain things in my life that I wanted, that I never got. And now I thank Him for that. I thank Him that it never happened. See, it's because when you're a child, you think from out that mindset of your world, of your understanding. Mika, my little daughter, she came to visit. I asked her, what would you like? She said to me, I said to her, anything you like to eat, I'll buy it for you. She looked at me, she said to me, ice cream. So, no problem, I'll buy you a tub of ice cream. And then she looked at me, she said to me, but I want it for breakfast. So what did I do? I said, yes, of course you can. Because it's not a staple diet, it's just for a time, short, lived span thing. See, there's a difference in that. To say, yes, you can have ice cream for breakfast in December holidays, than having ice cream for breakfast the whole of your life. Yeah. So, and don't you think that our spiritual dad, who is called Dad, is the same? That he would rather want the best for you because he loves you than to settle with what you want because of your lack of understanding. We know now part, but one day we will know fully. It's like looking in a mirror, and back then it was polished bronze. It was not a clear picture that like our mirrors. So if I now start realizing that, you know what, there's aspects of my life that I thank the Lord now that it never happened the way I prayed, how much more will there be when I get to Him? So I want to tell you, in terms of when it comes to love and spiritual growth, chill. Flip the page and decide not to throw spiritual tantrums anymore. Because maybe God's just going to say 1, 2, no, I'm joking. See, we think happiness, we get saved just to be happy. What if there's more than just to be happy about? What is more, that Christianity is more than just a feel-good movement? And I'm not against happiness. You hear what I'm saying? Next point. We need to, and this is the last point with a plane that's going to try and land lift up again. We need to learn to pick our fights. I don't know if you watched the fight between McGregor and Cobbett, that one, Khabib. What are you pronouncing? Khabib. Whatever. I don't know if you watched the fight. He lost. Big time. He picked the wrong man to tease. But then what happened was that after they fight in this ring, the fight was won by Khabib. He jumped, Khabib now, jumped the fence, thingy, what do you call it, the rail, the fence, the cage, the cage fighting, jumped the cage, and he attacked the trainer of McGregor. Whatever. There's so many theories and stuff around it. What happened was, even Khabib, whatever, picked the wrong fight. Because it was not the fight that he was called to do. He was supposed to fight within the cage. And it reminded me of how many times did he pick the wrong fight. I was like on our hands this week. A guy drove in front of me, Peter knows. I was at his house on his way to Peter, and a guy drove in front of me, so much so that I had to push brakes my whole car like, oh. And then I took a photo and put it on Facebook. En gesien, ja, met afval. I don't know. No, grey beard. Yeah, and it was that thing where the Lord spoke and said, is it really the fight that you want to pick? Is it really the fight you want to pick? I said, is it really? It's like, God, but Lord, is it really the fight you want to pick? And, yeah. Sometimes we want to pick fights that are not our fights. The church needs to learn how to live in love and flow in love. We've picked fights that was not our fights. The world started to know the church as an institution, as a religious government, as a religious institution, call it what you like, that all they know is what we are against and not what we are for. We're against this, we're against that, we're against this, we're against that. But what are you for? What do you stand for? So when we did the Free House, there was this one, what do you call it, newspaper reporter that came to me. He asked me, why are you guys doing this? And I said to him, to demonstrate God's love. And he was like, no, this can't be. Why are you doing it? To demonstrate God's love. But now, why did you pick the Whale Festival? Because there's a lot of people here. He could not understand why we did what we did. And all I wanted to tell him was to demonstrate God's love. Because that was our only reason. Isn't it time for the church to pick our right fights? Made me think, and I've been thinking about this for years now. Are we primarily a moral religion? Are we primarily a moral religion? Or is religion, or is morality flowing from out my relationship with God? So that's the difference. That means that I cannot force my moral issues and my moral things upon people that does not serve God. I cannot point fingers to people outside the relationship with God and tell them how to react and what they're supposed to look like if they don't stand in a relationship with God. It's off-putting. Plus, we've done it in church and it's just window dressing. You come to church and this is the way you behave. You don't need to change within. Dude, just change your clothing. Just change your hairstyle. Just change something. Look like us. I don't care what's happening inside. No. What if the church is supposed to look different? What if you're supposed to come to church and not trust anyone in this place because you were too scared that they would steal something from you? What if you had to worship with their one hand in the air and the other one on your wallet? Just to make sure you're not getting robbed at church. Don't you think we would have been in a better place? Because I think the right people would have been there. Because the church is twofold. And it's for us, that's believers, to grow. And to grow from a baby Christian to a mature Christian. But I also believe that it is a place where we can invite our friends that's unsaved into without being rejected. The problem is they get rejected because they don't look like us, they don't speak like us. Their moral values are not like us. And you really want to tell me that that's what we are called for? To point fingers? Isn't it that Paul wrote and he says that through love you will show us a better place, a better thing, something with fullness? That because of love we move into maturity? Isn't that the fight that we should pick? And that is to bring unbelievers in. To fight for their souls that they don't die without accepting Jesus. Isn't that the fight that we should pick? Isn't that the fight that we should pick, to bring them to church and say, you know what, at least come to me. I will show you a place where you will not be rejected. Somebody showed me or forwarded me a video clip and it really spoke to my heart this week. About a guy, I think that the video clip was called Barstool, where he says that he went to the pub and how he was among friends but never had answers to his problems. So he decided to come to church. The only problem was he smelled like the bar. When he walked into the church, he got the evil eye, he got all the looks, he got the rejection, all that. And his comment was, I felt more love on the bar chair than in the church, and I will not put my foot in church ever again. Isn't that a slap in the face of our Lord that we serve? If He is the Good Shepherd that leads you and me, and we say that He is leading us, is He not leading us towards other people as well? Because that was the very reason why He came to this earth. It's interesting. John 10 verse 10. I've come that what? That who may have? That? The one supply that? That who?
Yes.
No. That they. That they may have life. Did you get that? Jesus came so that they, not us. Yes, us as well, because we used to be part of the they. But we are not part of the they anymore to point fingers to them. We are part now of a holy generation, of a royal priesthood, so that we can initiate them into who we are. Not pointing to their mistakes. That is love. See, Jesus healed a man that was lame. The guy jumped up. And the religious folks went to Jesus and said to him, dude, didn't you know that it was Sabbath? You're not supposed to do it. Do you think the guy that walked cared? Who was the happy one? The lame person that got healed. I want you to turn the page of religiosity, of pointing fingers to other people. I'm guilty. We don't have time for this. I wanted a dream. Do a short story. When I was studying, in my dream, I was a student studying theology, and in my dream I studied liturgy. And liturgy is how to conduct a service. Okay. It's not what you see here. And in my dream I had to study that. And my flat had a big window. And in my dream a plane flew over the flat, and the wings tipped the flat, and it crashed into the street in front of my flat. And in my dream that street was a highway, and the cars drove into the plane and that whole thing. And I remember there was a friend of mine, and in my dream I only knew that there was a friend with me, but I never knew who he was. And when the plane crashed, both of us ran out, and we started pulling people out of the plane. Putting them on the pavement and ran in and get the next one. And then we just heard the ambulance came and the sirens and the tires, and the next moment they stopped at the plane crash and they whipped out their brides and they started crying. And they asked us, come join in. It's like, can't you see people are dying? And it happened with the fire department, it happened with the traffic department. Name all the people that you can think of, that all, you could hear their tires screaming to the plane crash. And when they got there, they just whipped out their brides and they wanted to bride. I remember waking up and I was really like, what is the meaning of this dream? And I spoke to somebody that knew me quite well, and the person said, you know what, that is how you view the church. And that was in 1998. And it never changed. Because I still view the church the same way. We became a social club. Pay our club fees, and if you need to be happy, we need to be kept happy. If we're not happy, we will go to the next one. Because it's all about happiness. It's all about what I can get out of God, what I can get out of the system. It's all about me. It's about picking the wrong fights because we are picking one another apart. But what about picking fights out there? There's people literally dying without Christ in our minds. When last have you showed God's love to somebody else? When last have you spoke to somebody at the till, looked the person in the eyes, smiled and said thank you? I'm not even talking about preaching. When last have you paid for somebody who had short change or short money at the till and say, listen, that 10 rand, I will pay it. Take what you picked. When last did you step out of your comfort zone just to show the love of God? That's picking the right one. May you never lose heart. May you never lose focus and rein about why we are here. Yes, you are sitting here today so that you can be what's the word? Edified. Yes. Maar mense, ons word te dik gevreet in die gees. And nothing happens. Because more in than there is going out. And I want to challenge you with this. I want to challenge you with this. This week, do something at least once. Do something to bring hope to our time. To bring Christ to our time. Do something. And that's it. If there's one quote, if you ever want to quote me, there's one quote I want you to quote me on. And that is, Christianity is so easy, you can live it. Because the moment it becomes something that you cannot live, you've missed it. That means to reach people out there is possible. Yeah. We'll make something out of it that it's not supposed to be, as we did of church. And may we become more a church of different races. May we become more a church of different personalities. May we be so challenged at Rain about our wallets in our back pocket while we worship than anything else. May the love of God fill this place so that we never can sit still but want to go. There's a challenge. There's a challenge. And hear me out. I'm not talking about church growth. That's not what I'm talking about. I follow you. I want to clarify this. When I was part of the denominational church, we went to one church growth seminar after the other. I've had enough of church growth. I'd rather have a small church that loves God and that is following Him and doing what He wants us to do than to have a mega church. You know what I'm saying? But I would love to see us, like you said, bring in people. Bring in people. And that is. And may you never come to a place where it's like religion. You want to put your feet on the chairs, you put your feet on the chairs. If you want to go and make coffee while the service is on, you do that. Because it's not about that. You hear what I'm saying? God nowhere said how we should do church. He said, be the church. So we can do it according to our personality. And the way we do it might not grab the hearts and the minds of other people, but this is who we are.